Homeopathy. Is there any pseudoscience that's less based in reality or less embarrassing for its adherents? I mean, after all, it's literally sugar water that quacks say remembers molecules that used to be in it but aren't there anymore. Like if you have cancer, then obviously you should eat some water that used to have uranium in it or whatever. So yeah, it's useless. It can be debunked by a 7-year-old, and it's very dangerous when used by sick people instead of real medicine. So what could possibly be worse than homeopathy?
Bromeopathy.
Oh, yeah, I guess something called bromeopathy would be worse, wouldn't it? Okay, so prepare yourselves, because this is going to be like Dante's Inferno, and except for like instead of journeying through hell, you're going through concentric circles of stupidity, which to be fair is my version of hell. We begin in the first circle of stupidity. Noted white supremacist and frozen fish stick heir Tucker Carlson has made a docuseries. The docuseries is called The End of Men. This is the trailer, and just to prepare you for it, let me tell you that it's so bonkers that Snopes had to publish a fact check saying that yes, he did actually make this trailer, even though some mean libs cut out some context, which gave the slightly misleading impression that Carlson's trailer consisted entirely of muscular, half-dressed men exhibiting their physical prowess. Look, I'll include the link if you want to watch the full thing. It's not entirely muscular, half-dressed men exerting their physical prowess in homoerotic ways. There's also like a solid 10 seconds of JFK at the beginning, so. Anyway, apparently one of the ways Tucker Carlson thinks men are ending is due to falling testosterone levels. And apparently one of the ways to fix this is red light therapy, aka ball tanning, as artfully demonstrated in his trailer by a man sexually assaulting the 2001 A Space Odyssey monolith. To discuss this in the most scientifically accurate way, Carlson invited on Andrew McGovern, who is a urologist who studies the impact of low-level diodes on androgens. Just kidding. He's a personal trainer from Ohio. I have a lot of respect for personal trainers because I do calisthenics and, they are the experts. So they help me perfect my form during my anti-rotation core progression. I trust them with my planks, but I would not necessarily trust them with whether or not I should expose my genitals to lasers. Let's see, there must be some kind of mnemonic device in case you want to remember this. Like, for building your abs, personal trainers are fab. Roasting your junk, that's total bunk. So there are a few claims being made here with varying levels of truth behind them. Number one is that testosterone levels in cis men have been dropping over time. Number two is that that's a bad thing. And number three is that light therapy helps. So first of all, is testosterone dropping? The preponderance of evidence up to this point says yes. Cis men have been steadily losing testosterone since at least the 1980s. In 2007, researchers published a seminal study of 1,700 men in Boston over the course of several decades, and they found a substantial and as yet unrecognized age-independent population-level decrease in testosterone in American men, potentially attributable to birth cohort differences or to health or environmental effects not captured in observed data. That's just one large study I picked at random, but there have been dozens and dozens that have found the same thing. Early on, a lot of researchers thought that this might just be the result of age. As men get older, their testosterone tends to go down. And of course, the boomers have been tipping the scales in their favor for a while now by just being such a large population. But then studies like this one came along and found actually There's no real reason, first of all, why testosterone has to decrease as men age. And second, the trend still holds even when controlling for age. The next obvious culprit is obesity, which has risen dramatically over the past 40 years and which is known to throw off hormones in both men and women, including suppressing testosterone. Smoking is another habit that's changed during that time. Much to my surprise, I didn't know this. I learned that smoking nicotine actually increases testosterone. So quitting, as many men have done in the past few decades, would lower it. But then studies came out, including my original example from 2007, showing that the trend holds even when controlling for age, obesity, and smoking. That leaves, well, a lot of other possibilities, but the top ones that researchers think might be to blame are things like environmental toxins, like plastics and pesticides that might be causing this. In the end, there are probably loads of different factors that all add up to what we've been seeing, so there isn't really one solution. So yes, testosterone levels are dropping. On to the second unstated but assumed claim that that's a bad thing. I touched on this subject a few months ago when I talked about No Nut November and how some men seem really obsessed with increasing their testosterone levels, even without a doctor saying that their level is low. Our society has placed testosterone on this weird phallic pedestal above all of the other hormones, to the point that the average person seems to think that more testosterone must be better. But that's not true. More is not better. The ideal level of testosterone is the range that your body is capable of handling. Or if you're trying to modify your body in some particular way, like if you're trans or if you're a bodybuilder, then the ideal is the level where you get the results that you want. That doesn't mean that those levels are necessarily healthy, but not everyone's personal goal is physical health. Even if your testosterone falls below what doctors consider to be the normal range, it's not the end of the world, and you might not even notice it and need to supplement it. Testosterone levels change dramatically over the course of a day or a month or a year, and they change with your activity levels and with your eating habits. Many cis men with slightly lower than average testosterone won't even notice. For very low testosterone, cis men may experience lower sex drive, lower energy, less muscle strength, at which point they might notice and want a therapeutic intervention. And so along with dropping testosterone, researchers have also noticed a correlating increase in issues like erectile dysfunction. And yeah, that is a negative, it's generally treatable, but no one can say that it's a good thing to have erectile dysfunction on the rise, so to speak. That was a poor choice of words. That said, we don't know if it's all due to lower testosterone or if the erectile dysfunction is due to a related trend that affects both, like the increase in obesity or a decrease in physical labor. So we don't know also how much of it is due to successful marketing on the part of big pharma pushing boner pills to people who think that, if your dick isn't hard 24/7, are you truly living your life to the fullest? It's a lot of issues all wrapped up together. How society sees cis men, how cis men want to see themselves, how everyone thinks of testosterone as a central aspect of manliness. Yet we have anthropologists finding that, for instance, testosterone drops when cis men get married, and even when they just live in a home with other people. Their testosterone drops when they hold their newborn child. And men who report more spousal investment, like wanting to spend more time with their partners instead of going out with their friends on the weekend, tend to have lower testosterone. Obviously, hormones don't directly control all of our behaviors. But if those trends hold to be more or less true, then is lower testosterone such a bad trade-off? If I had to choose between a partner with higher testosterone and one who loves me more, personally, I think I'd probably go for the latter. And of course, the partner with the lower testosterone may also live a longer, happier life, considering that increased testosterone is linked to prostate cancer as well as stroke and heart attack. So is it a bad thing that testosterone levels are in general dropping among cis men? We really don't know. Change doesn't necessarily mean bad, unless you make your living as a conservative on TV who spends his time convincing older Americans that anything that they don't personally remember experiencing as an 8-year-old in 1950 is by default evil. All of which brings me to the third claim, that red light therapy or light therapy in general will work to fix this problem of dropping testosterone. The personal trainer was more correct than he knew when he branded it Bromeopathy or Bromeopathy, because the real world evidence that it works is about as good as that for homeopathy. And it's marketed to morons who don't care about that because all they care about is being a bro. For the most part, the science behind this claim was performed on animals with less than stellar results. For instance, in 2013, Korean researchers blasted 20 rats' testicles with red light for 30 minutes a day for 5 days straight. And they found that the 10 rats that they exposed to a 670 nanometer laser, but not the 10 exposed to an 808 nanometer laser, showed an increase in testosterone. Over on Twitter, Lindsay Byerstein has a great thread on another study from 1981 that did a similar experiment on quails. Quails? I don't know what the plural of quail is. Unlike humans, though, she writes, quail have a breeding season and they suck their balls back into their bodies when it's not time. Bit different than humans. And there doesn't appear to be any research supporting this sort of thing in humans. I've now, sadly, read dozens of articles promoting the use of red light therapy devices to increase testosterone, and the only studies they cite are that 2013 10-rat study, a few studies that suggest red light might increase sperm mobility when they're in a petri dish, and a 1939 study in which researchers exposed different areas of 5 men's bodies to UV light until the skin reddened. After 5 days, testosterone levels rose by 120% when the light was focused on the men's chest. A 200% increase in testosterone levels was seen after 8 days of exposure to the genitals, which reportedly was due to a boost in the production of the cells that produce testosterone, Leydig cells. Remarkably, I did manage to find that study. I also, though, found an equally small study of another 5 men, published in 2020, that attempted to more or less replicate this 1939 study. And for the first time ever, they say, which didn't work out so well, they write, these findings suggest that acute UV light exposure may be insufficient to positively impact serum testosterone in older adult men. And that was UV light, not just red light, which, by the way, you might not want to blast onto your genitals in large amounts, considering that UV light can, cause cancer. At least red light doesn't do that, but we also have zero evidence that it does much of anything else, and certainly nothing for your testosterone. So why, in that case, is Tucker Carlson interviewing a personal trainer who says that it does? Bromeopathy. It's the best possible word for it because, even though my head exploded when he said it, it is in fact a perfect word. It's absolute pseudoscience invented to sell garbage to bros who are terrified of losing their masculinity, whatever that means. Don't buy it. And I mean that literally and figuratively. Don't buy the dick spotlight, but also don't buy the idea that there's some genocide of masculinity happening that will result in men going extinct. The world changes, and sometimes, if you can believe it, it's not always a bad thing.